This video is going viral on X, and she is asking, why is it that only 27% of Black women are married in America? Now, people have come up with all different types of reasons, and I will show you an expose that I saw years ago on ABC, where they spoke to Black women who were professionals who were struggling, I guess, to find, a husband.
Black men are in crisis. We start hearing that they're gay or that they're snowbunnied or that they are imprisoned. There's not enough of them who are marriageable. So she's going to go down the laundry list. But the whole premise of this entire conversation is Black men are in crisis. That is the foundational starting point.
And even though that was years ago, I'm going to show you that just to show you how, once again, this subject has come back up again in the US. And at the end of the day, I'm going to tie it all to math, because I think for one, don't believe that men are just sitting back and they're like, I do not find Black women physically attractive. Everybody has like their type, right? But I don't like that. I haven't had that experience. I don't think that's what this is really about. I think a lot of this comes to basic math. Now, this is the video that is going viral. We're going to go ahead and bring it in here, because once again, this subject is back in the headlines.
26% of Black women today in America, at least, are married. 26%. There's a reason for that. And it goes down to perceptions we have about marriage. Submission is seen as, submission is seen as some old patriarchal, domineering, disrespectful, oppressive idea. So they get in these marriages and they want to box with their husbands as soon as they don't agree. They don't want to yield. They want to do their own thing. They want to remain single in marriage. And that doesn't work very well. Because like I said, at the end of the day, no man wants to feel like they're married to somebody who's competitive or who's their competition. And that's what this is looking like. It looks really bad. It's really bad. Okay, so now I want to bring up, to continue this point, I want to bring up another clip that I saw of her giving advice to the younger generation. Then we're going to break that down.
So I pause it here. So this is the video that's giving people like vibes. And people are seeing this and they're like, is this real? Is that number true? So the number has changed over the years. I'm going to show you the difference. First and foremost, many people will ask, has that been your experience? That has not been my experience. However, I do have friends that have had that as part of their experience. And as I told you earlier, I do not believe that the majority, the number one reason is, people just don't find Black women physically attractive and da-da-da. That is not what I believe. I believe a lot of this comes down to simple math. When you look at a person's certain type, right? Black women, the studies show Black women are more likely to choose to date or to marry. Let's go with marry. They're more likely to choose to marry a Black man more than any other group.
This is a great point. So yes, Black men do marry out at a higher rate, but it is not a apples to apples comparison, because basically men control access to marriage. Men generally are the ones who are expected to still propose. And so one of the arguments made is that Black women are so loyal to Black men, and that is why they have not married white men. But that is a false premise, because again, men are the one who actually propose. And one of the issues that some of my research that I shared in some of the previous videos showed was that perceptions about Black femininity are still very negative when it comes to other races and their perceptions of Black women. And so that could be a reason that we don't see Black women marrying out to white men or other races as much, not because they don't want to, but because some of these men of other races still have negative perceptions about Black women as far as them being a wife material. So that it could be the reason why you see the marriage rate being less for Black women, not because there's lack of desire, but perhaps there's just lack of options.
They're more likely to choose to marry a Black man more than any other group. But do the numbers reflect that?
According to that data, and to be clear, it pulled from about 1 million online online users who are on states such as OkCupid and other online dating profiles. It also included in-person interviews. Based upon that data, it showed that women across the board of multiple races, they responded first to white men. White men were their primary preference. And then second was men of their own race. That's what I was saying. And yes, that is including Black women. More specifically, Black women had a preference for white men first, according to this online data. And then secondarily, they had a preference for Black men. That's what I'm saying. Check it out. Check out the book. I referenced it, written by 2 sociologists, just published, I think about a year or 2 ago. Very interesting and very relevant.
So I'm gonna take you back to this segment on ABC. This is really interesting, right? I saw this on TV when it came out. Now, this is like over what, 15 years ago? 42% of Black women are unmarried. Check this out.
It's just not that easy. For starters, there are more Black women than Black men.
The same is true for women of all races. That's not really a point.
1.8 million more. So even if every Black man in America married a Black woman today, 1 out of 12 still wouldn't make it down the aisle. Let's take 100 Black men. If you eliminate those without a high school diploma, those without a job, and the number of Black men between the ages of 25 and 34 who are incarcerated, that leaves only about half of Black men eligible to pop the question.
Okay, another popular talking point. Black men are in prison. There's not enough of them around. Yada, 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 yada. There's problems and all that. Y'all know the drill. So this was debunked again years ago. Let me share this with you guys real quick. Some sources for you guys to check out. The myth that there are more Black men in prison than in college debunked in one chart. This is kind of talking about how, look, we're having these conversations about, oh, all these Black men are in prison, but you have more of them in college than in prison. Vox talks about this. There's other sources. Again, I linked this to the in the description box, but really, this talking point has kind of been debunked.
Let's go back to those numbers. Now, this was 15 years ago. And this is what I've been trying to explain to people. If you go back to what I said before, right? That
Half of Black men
54% eligible. So if you go back to what I said in the beginning, that Black women, most Black women are more likely to marry a Black man. Okay. Now think about the numbers that they just gave you.
Now, of course, there's a lot of people who are going to push back to that, right? There's stats that say the majority of Black men are at least in the middle class, if not higher. Yeah, I think it's over 50% of Black men today, right, of marrying age are single and childless and in the middle class. And so just from a strictly monetary standpoint, there's an argument that says, no, we're not, like, we're fine. We are fine. Meanwhile, however, let's just say everything she said is true. Let's just forget about what Black men have achieved economically. Let's forget about where they're at. Let's forget about their socioeconomic status in comparison to Black women. Let's just forget about that and assume that Black men are in crisis. Do you mean to tell me that Black women are not? Black women really are not in crisis? And then this is what happens, right? We start with the stats. Oh, well, there's more Black women starting businesses. Okay. Well, there's more Black women going to college. Okay. There's more Black women fill in the blank. But it's like, okay, again, just because, first of all, more women of all races are in college than men. So that's like a moot point. Second of all, yes, Black women are some of the most enrolled, but also some of the most in debt. There is I shared this in a video a couple of months ago, right? Where it talked about how Black women, they were getting more degrees and also having a higher amount of debt. And it was taking them a lot longer to pay it off in comparison to other races of women. Not to mention that about 1/3 of women are like out or below the poverty line, according to Black demographics, the last that I checked. And so the problem that I have with these conversations just of Black men being in crisis is that assumes that Black women aren't. They're born in the same household, coming up under the same parents, under the same single mothers, under the same whatever.
So this is including, there's more Black women than there are Black men. Then you have to remove those who are already married, those who are already taken. Don't forget the prison, the prison and industrial complex. I've talked about this before on the show, the school to prison pipeline. So that's two. Some people marry people in prison, but most people don't. Let's just be real.
What's going on with Black women? What's going on with Black women? I want to turn your attention to the new Jane Crow, Women's Mass Incarceration, which is specifically dealing with the rising rate of incarceration among Black women. I know she talked about there being exponentially more, let's see if I can find this, women who are incarcerated, or exponentially more Black men who are incarcerated than Black women. With respect to the other populations, let me see, there's this one part in particular I want to highlight. Let me see. So in this whole point, the whole purpose of this basically is actually break down how, but case in point, you're starting to see more Black women go into prison. There's a rising way, and this is just women in general. They're starting to see more of an increase, but of course, surprise, surprise, this is exponentially or uniquely impacting Black women the most. So there's this one section of the article here. It says, for example, the U.S. Department of Justice reports that the rate of incarceration for Black women is 113 per 100,000, more than twice that of white females. The data is even more troublesome for young Black women in their late teens and early adulthood, as they are 5 times more likely to be incarcerated than their white counterparts. So if you want to talk about there being a exponentially higher rate of Black men in prison with respect to other populations, the same can be said for Black women.
Then you have to think about those who just don't want to be married and they want to be bachelors like forevers. It is what it is. That's 3. Then you also have to remove those who are not straight. Like, so you have to remove Black men that are LGBTQ, right?
Okay, so let's start with the Black men are gay. This is something that I've heard time and time again. There's too many gay Black men. There's too many down low Black men. So that just remove them from the population. Again, what is missing from that conversation is, okay, well, what percentage of Black women are gay or queer or bisexual? So you mean to tell me that every single Black woman is heterosexual, but only Black men are gay? Y'all see what I'm saying? And so a lot of the talking points that I think we're going to hear in this video as we move forward can literally be applied to women, and sometimes even more so. Let me show you a source just to kind of give you guys some context if we really want to get into who is what. If we want to do the whole, well, they're gay, yada, yada, yada. This was shared back in 2019, and trust me, guys, there are many sources. This is just one of many sources. This one says 23% of young Black women now identify as bisexual. So if you want to talk about queerness, LGBTQ, same gender loving, Black women are not excluded from that. If anything, they're arguably embracing the lifestyle more so than Black men. So, reading it a little bit, it says, since 1972, social scientists have studied the General Social Survey to chart the complexities of social change in the United States. Let me move forward. It says, in the 10 years of the General Social Survey has included a question on sexual identity, rates of identification among gay men, lesbian women, and bisexual men in the U.S. haven't changed much. Bisexual identifying women, on the other hand, account for virtually all of the growth among those who say they're lesbian, gay, or bisexual. Of all the women who responded to the 2018 survey, more than 1 in 18 identified as bisexual. 1 decade ago, only 1 in 65 did. So basically what it's saying is the amount of gay men, let me see. Yeah, it says that amount of gay men, lesbian women, and bisexual men hasn't changed much, but there has been a huge growth among those who are basically among women, right? When it comes to identifying as being bisexual. Then it goes to break it down here a little bit more specifically. It says by 2018, a few years ago, we wrote about how approximately 18% of young Black women identified as lesbian or bisexual in the 2016 General Social Survey sample. This rate was more than 2 times higher than for white women or other racial groups, and almost 4 times higher than for men of any racial group. Let me repeat this. It says the rate was more than 2 times higher than for white women and almost 4 times higher than for men of any other racial group. So if we really want to talk about, getting in the nitty gritty of who is LGBTQ, who is queer, based upon the evidence, we're seeing it is women who are really embracing their lifestyle so much more. And so the problem that I have with this Black men are gay narrative is that it always assumes that all these women are just completely straight, that they're not on the spectrum, that they're not bisexual. And what we are actually seeing, what some of the different research is suggesting, is that not only are women more quick to embrace different sexual orientations, it is actually growing among women. It is especially growing among Black women. Granted, this is just one survey, right? But there are plenty more out there. This is just one. Let me share something else for you guys, and then we're going to continue. If you want to get into the whole black men are gay, yada 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 yada. Here's another one, because I wanted to bring a little bit of research for you guys. This one is when the rainbow is not enough. This is the blackcensus.org. So it just looks at the community as it relates to Black people and specifically. I want to go briefly into this one part because I think this is important. If we scroll right down here and it says Black census respondents by sexual orientation, we see lesbian 3%. We see gay 3%. What that's essentially saying is that based upon this research, it's saying that the percentage of lesbian and gay men are pretty close based upon this census. And again, if you really want to get into the nitty gritty, here's about 17 pages here. I have the sources actually linked in the description. But case in point, if we want to say that Black men are gay, Black women are gay too. Or there is an equal amount of Black women who are gay to actually go along with that, if not arguably more so. So again, a lot of these talking points that I said we're going to go over can actually be applied the other way around, which means it's null and void. But let's continue.
So the number, think about everything I just said. The number is going to continue to decrease of the men that are available to you. So you're working with a smaller pool. That's why I say a lot of this is basic math. Now, some people see this and they'll say, oh, well, Sabby, what do you know? You're married. I am, but I wasn't always married. Somebody say to you, oh, Sabby, what do you know? You're not married to a Black guy. No, I'm not. But again, I wasn't always married. Once upon a time, I did date. So keep that in mind. Now we're going to go on a little bit more in this segment because I want you to see the women that they sit down and they talk to. All of these women have professional jobs, very smart. And I want you to hear some of the things that they say. Again, this was 15 years ago, and you tell me if this still holds true today.
And eligible to pop the question. Nicole sees the problem every day.
It is sad to see that the majority of the defendants that we prosecute are Black males. Those numbers can be very disappointing.
You mean to tell me for a Pookie, there isn't this? We got the Gorillas, we got the Sukianas of the world, that culture is being fed and funded. They have millions of followers. So don't act like, because what she's describing is a Pookie and Ray Ray type, but don't act like Pookie and Ray Ray don't have a counterpart. Don't act like they ain't got Shanae, right? Like, don't act like that don't exist. It obviously does. They're being funded, right? They have followers, they have supporters. You got people out there talking about this one right here. Michael B. Jordan is cute, but he don't have any edge. He just look, responsible. He looked like he know where his birth certificate at. That got 14.5 million views, 11.9K retweets, almost 9,000 quotes. Look at the amount of likes. Listen. So again, let's not act like for every Pookie and Ray Ray, there let's not act like that don't exist. That's also removed from the conversation, because again, we want to talk about marriageable black men. We cannot assume that every woman is marriageable. We cannot. The starting point should not be that the entire human population, all black women are marriageable, that they're starting from that point. They're not. Like, not everybody is marriage material. Let's let that sink in, okay?
I'm done with life, and it's all